Central bankers like to hang out together because it's a hard job. It's a bit like being president. There just aren't a lot of other people who understand what you're going through. So they meet in Basel, in Jackson Hole, in Washington, and they talk about stuff that bothers them. At the annual meeting of the IMF this year, they spent a lot of time talking about Libra.
And that's because Facebook is about putting power in people's hands.
This is Facebook's plan to create a new global digital currency backed by a reserve of existing assets like dollars and euros. Central bankers didn't used to think they had to think about digital currency. Then Facebook announced Libra. Now they have to think about it.
Maybe it has sort of gelled during the summer because we ended up with a lot of conversations about Libra because Libra kind of showed up, at least from a central bank perspective, kind of out of the blue. But to me, this conversation was not new at all, and that's because in my country we are moving rapidly out of cash under all circumstances. So we have had good reasons to think about these things.
Central banks are thinking hard about Libra for two reasons. First is scale. There are other stable coins, digital money like Libra backed by existing currencies. But Facebook is massive, and it's everywhere. This is why Mark Zuckerberg had to testify before Congress about Libra. Facebook is big, and big is scary.
The Libra stablecoin project stands out for the speed with which its network could reach global scale in payments.
It wasn't an accident that Lael Brainerd gave that speech in Washington the same week as the IMF meetings. She was sending a message. Yes, Facebook, we are talking about you when you're not around, and we're not saying good things.
What sets Facebook's Libra apart is the combination of an active user network representing more than a third of the global population with the issuance of a private digital currency opaquely tied to a basket of sovereign currencies. It should be no surprise that Facebook's Libra is attracting a high level of scrutiny from lawmakers and authorities.
Libra is going to be backed mostly by dollars, and I believe that it will extend America's financial leadership around the world, as well as our democratic values and oversight.
So that's the second thing that bothers central bankers. Libra wouldn't use existing regulated currencies. It would use them to create its own. The biggest risk there is to smaller economies where there's already a tendency to dollarize, to save physical dollars. A new global currency could accelerate dollarization, or Libraization.
If a stablecoin is not issued in the currency of the country where it is going to be used, so for example, the Caribbean, say, it could be that this is taking over the majority of transactions, and at that point, the central bank is losing control of monetary policy. So dollarization is a real risk.
The vehicle where you could get the big changes is a platform like Facebook, with over 2 billion people using it. And there was a lot of nice approaches within the Libra coin where you could see lots of value. The difficulty for central bankers is how do you regulate something like Libra? I think Facebook hadn't thought through carefully how important control of currency is for governments and for central banks.
Ultimately, the question here is who gets to decide what money is? Countries have been fighting for several hundred years to control the supply of money. They're not going to give it up just because Mark Zuckerberg is ambitious.
The financial industry is stagnant, and there is no digital financial architecture to support the innovation that we need. I believe that this problem can be solved, and Libra can help.
Public sector has always had a say when it comes to money, so it's hard to imagine that you create sort of entirely private monies using the plural, and if history gives us any guidance, those types of arrangements tend to collapse sooner or later. That's why we have central banks.
When private companies create their own money, there can be innovation, but there can also be pretty destructive consequences. Central bankers know this, and that's why when they hang out these days, sometimes they're gossiping about Facebook.